If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stats Show is for you. My name is Christopher Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it is Iain McKenzie. We'll come to Iain in a second. This week is week 20 of 2025. I can't believe it. We're nearly halfway through the year. And that week is Monday, the 19th of May, all the way through and including Sunday, the 25th. My apologies to anyone who logged on last week looking for week 19. Myself and senior management were away on holiday. This week we'll be looking at both weeks. This week I'm joined by Iain McKenzie. Iain McKenzie is the boss man of the Guild of Property Professionals, an affiliate group of the best UK estate agents, around 800 firms around up and down the country. You have to be a bloody good, that's a technical word, estate agent to become a member of the guild. And Iain helps and guides and supports those independent agents to be better agents. So he's got his finger on the pulse and he certainly knows what he's talking about. Iain, thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome, Chris. Thank you very much, and I hope you had a nice holiday.
Bless you. Yeah, very nice indeed.
Good.
With a little bit of work as well, so it was all good as well. Anyway, right. We're looking at this week. For anyone that's never watched the show before, roughly an hour, split roughly in half. The first half is where we look at the UK property market in terms of its stats. Now, you could say, Chris, there's lots of stats out there. Yeah, there is. But the Land Registry is looking at sales that were agreed 8, 9, 10 months ago. The Halifax and Nationwide were looking at sales that took place 2 or 3 months ago. We're looking at sale prices and sales that took place last week. So by knowing what's happening a bit more up to date, then if you're a property market junkie and you like to know what's happening, then this show is for you. So I said the first half is about the UK property market, where we look at listings, sales agreed, fall throughs, and other great stats like that. And then the second half is where we focus on a town or a city. This week, we're returning back to Canterbury. I think we went there a couple of years ago. If you're not from Canterbury, you might think, well, there's no point in me watching this. However, if you're an estate agent who is suffering from cheap fee competitors or agents who are overvaluing, and you're needing some way to prove that you are a better estate agent, that your valuations are correct, that you're more likely to sell a house, then we're going to be using a bit of kit which I humbly believe is the best property statistic tool out there. This tool is available to estate agents. There is a free version as well, and it shows who is the best estate agent. So we're going to be looking at who is the best estate agent in Canterbury. We'll do a bit of lettings as well, and look at the piece of software and see if it would work for you as well. But before we go to Canterbury, Iain, let us have a look at the UK property market stats.
Indeed.
Right, this week we have put onto the market 41,299 properties for sale. Last week it was 40,675, and the week before that it was just over 30,000. As you can see here on the graph here, ladies and gentlemen, the white line is 2025, is that we had 2 weeks ago we had a drop, and we had another drop a couple of weeks before that. And that is because, ladies and gentlemen, is that first drop was Easter, the second drop was Bank Holiday Monday, and we will get another drop in a week or so's time when we have the second Bank Holiday Monday. So it is that, and if you can see here, every single time that there is a bank holiday or an Easter, then I'll just pull that graph up so you can see there is always a drop. And what you tend to find is the shape of the graph every week, ladies, and every year is identical. It's just whether the tide lifts it up or drops it down. So in terms of listings itself, the average price of a property coming on the market is £466,000, and year to date, 747,380 properties have been put onto the market, which is 6% higher than last year, 706,000. and 17.1% ahead of the 9-year average. What's our thoughts on listings, Iain?
The numbers are running very high, which can have a myriad of different reasons. There'll be some agents that will be pleased that the local homeowners have got more choice to be able to move more fluidly. And there'll be some agents in other parts of the UK that will be distressed because their available stock levels are getting too high. All of which causes for a change of behaviour from an estate agency perspective, which is to recognise that supply and demand curve is changing, to recognise that every inquiry into their office, and I'll say again that every inquiry into their office is important because they need to eke out who's motivated, who's not motivated, who is hot, who is not hot. Deploy different skills rather than being order takers. They've now got to be want makers and salespeople. And so it's back to the old fashioned style of agency of if somebody is prepared to contact you in whatever medium that they contact you in, and that isn't just walking through the front door, which doesn't happen so much these days, or telephone, which doesn't happen so much. It is social media, WhatsApp, all of the other mediums that we can think of. You've got to jump on it and you've got to be good because you don't want to lose any opportunities.
That's so important, Ian, is that we as estate agents don't sort the wheat out from the chaff.
No.
I can remember, and this surveys go, this isn't just a now thing, but, if you listen to the Property Academy when they do their mystery shopping exercises, and I know you were a former part of the Nurture Group, which
Yeah.
owned FIFO and Brief Your Market. And, even if I think they said only 51% of people, when there was a valuation request, did they actually get a phone call?
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
you haven't even got that's not even just checking it out. It just didn't get the phone call. Amazing. Um, let's just look at the stock levels. We always
Yeah.
do stock levels at the end of every month. So no, we're filming this on Wednesday the 28th, so we haven't got the May figures, but we've got the April figures. And you can see here that the stock levels are at around 715,000, which
Yeah.
when you compare that with other years, it is higher. I would judge it against more 17, 18, or 19, where the average was around that early 600s.
Yeah.
So about 16% all. But what is particularly interesting is, ladies and gentlemen, is that each week we do the stats show and we focus on a different town. I know this week we said we're going to do Canterbury, and we'll come to that in a bit. But this is an average of the UK. We've been going to towns where the stock levels today are double what they were in 17, 18, and 19.
Yeah.
Whilst there's others where they're almost the same.
Yeah.
So you can look at these stats, so you come out, till they come out your ears, but it's what's happening in your town that's the important bit.
You've got to know who your motivated sellers are in this sort of marketplace. You've got to manage them according to their needs. And we've got to stop in a market like this. You have to, and it isn't a request, it's more of a plea. You've got to please stop pinning the tail on the donkey when you're out valuing property. You've got to really please stop saying your home is worth, or I think that I can get you. You've got to really stop doing that. What you've got to focus on in this marketplace where stock levels change, supply and demand changes, the rules of agency change, you've got to be thinking about differential price point management. It doesn't matter how much I sell yours for, so long as I get you your next home with the difference in between that you were hoping for, I've done my job. And and it is one of the ones where if you ask any agent that looks like me, sadly, that means that we've been in the industry for quite some time. I remember in the 80s, I remember in the 90s, I remember in 2007. I've been through four recessions. I know how to transact in a marketplace and we're not in that market yet, but it is showing the signs of a changing marketplace where the heat has come out and it's now back to purest terms of a state agency, which is doing your job properly.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to this. We're going to get to the sales in a second, and we have had a tremendous sales week. But when you compare the number of sales versus the number of properties on the market, that tells a completely different. I'll be straight with you. The number of sales that have taken place this week is the highest since May 22,
Which is great.
which is great. But look, the magic thing is this. There was 413,000 properties for sale
Yeah.
in May 22, nearest damn it. Now there's 714.
Yeah,
So you're actually selling nearly half as less. You can go, oh, yeah, best week for sales. Yeah, it is. But it's everything is in context.
yeah,
Everything is in context.
yeah.
Let's move on to price reductions.
This
So,
is the biggie for me.
right, okay. So here we go. Number of reductions 27,205. The average price of a property being reduced is 429. Let's just remind ourselves the average price of a property coming on the market is 466. So the lower price properties are being reduced more than higher price ones. And I think this is an important one, is what percentage of your stock on a monthly basis, and we do this on a monthly basis as a monthly stat graph, are you reducing? 13.5%. Enough?
Um, I don't really care about that figure, if I'm honest. The figure I care about is the percentage that you're reducing the stock by. So I had a guild member in Park Lane, had an exhibition last week, and we talked about this exact topic. And he said, I've reduced more properties in the last month than I have done for some time. And I asked him, what's your average reduction that you've delivered? And be honest with yourself. He said about 5%. And I said, and is that enough? And he said, probably not. I said, so what stopped you actually going for more then? What stopped you actually giving the right advice to the seller to actually get their property sold rather than what you perceive is the right conversation just to chip away at it? Because if you're going for a correction or a new marketing strategy or whatever you wish to call it, other than a price reduction, then if you've got the time to have the conversation with your seller, give them the proper advice.
Yeah, it's almost estate agents are scared to talk about the property market because if they say it's going really well, then it's really hard for them to say that prices need reducing. But if they say prices are dropping or it's a tougher market, they might spook a few owners, might
Well,
they?
that's because they think that that's because they believe, it's not think, they believe that they own the news that they're giving. They don't own the news. They're just the deliverer of the news. It's not an estate agent that actually dictates what market economy factors do. It's a estate agent's job to react to it. And so, as a consequence of that, it's just be factual and be evidential with the information that you're giving your homeowner. Just allow them to make an informed decision.
Yeah, because it's not because the estate agents don't understand the market; they're just terrified the public will realise that they don't.
Yeah,
They post their pretty houses, they talk about their great service, they waffle on about their bespoke marketing. But when it comes to it, what sellers really care about is what's my house worth?
yeah.
And because if they say house prices are rising, as you say, they can't justify the reduction. If they say prices are falling, they fear they'll lose the instruction. So they end up doing nothing, saying nothing, and offering nothing.
But what you lose on the swings, you gain on the roundabouts. If people are moving, the best customers in this marketplace are the ones that are moving that are moving themselves, because you can ride out the peaks and troughs of the marketplace through the transaction.
You're so right. I mean, if you can't talk about if you can't talk confidently about the property market, then you've got no right asking for someone's biggest asset to sell it.
Yeah,
You
agreed.
know, I say don't hide from the property market. Own it. Talk about it. Give it some context. Silence doesn't build trust. I think it screams incompetence myself. But anyway, I'm going to get back off my horse because you know me. Oh, I was getting on a horse. And I promised myself, and I promised the wife I wouldn't get on a horse today. But I'm sorry.
Uh,
Right, let's go to sales. And again, best week for sales since May 2022.
yeah, it's
No,
good.
yeah, can't grumble at that, kids. £28,861. The average price of a property coming on the market is 375. We're on 526,508 gross sales year to date, which is 9% ahead of last year and 17.4% ahead of 17, 18, and 19.
But as a percentage of available stock, it's down.
As a percentage of available stock, it's down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it isn't all swings and roundabouts, Skinny Wings.
And what's the net sales?
We'll get to that in a second. Patience, Kivo Savi.
Okay.
Again, but let's just move on here. Is this look, ladies, and it's just clipped, but the average price of a property coming on the market, we set it up here. Let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, 466,000. Don't know where 462 came from. I've obviously not missed it. But anyway, it's 466. And the average price of a property selling, 375. That's not to say that all 462s are going for 375. So what that's saying is the lower price properties have a greater chance of selling. The higher price properties, just look at, isn't it amazing that each year, so there's Jan and it finishes there in December, they're all the same shape.
Mm.
Isn't it amazing? So this jump here, those regular viewers know that is the West London jump. That all that is W and SW in London all coming back from their holidays and putting their posh houses on the market. That's all that is, because I've done the analysis and it happens every year. But the gap there is 22%, which is absolutely massive when you consider the average normally is between 16 and 17. And again, this just puts us into stark relief. This is every single year, snapshot year week 20. And you can see here that the greeny colour is the average price of a property coming on the market, and the turquoise is the average price of a property going sale agreed. This is sale agreed, so subject to contract, not exchange or completion. So the gaps are, pretty big. 24. Okay, I mean 2020. Remember, was we were just coming out of COVID, so there was some flux there. Anything there that you want before we go on to the sell-through rate?
I think that, I mean, when you look at a national stat, there are certain statistics that get skewed by the fact that they are national because of the high prices in prime London, etc. So again, one that I'm less concerned about. But of course, within your own business, I think that that's a stat that's incredibly relevant, which is, are you actually listing at the price that is the sweet spot for your marketplace and for the needs of your customers? So nationally, you can easily discard that information. Locally and parochially, you really need to know what's happening in your business.
Indeed. In fact, we do have the stats, regional stats. We don't show them on the show that often, but it might be an opportune moment in the coming weeks to see if we can whip something up. Because you're absolutely right. If you look at London, you can split between inner London and outer
Yeah,
London.
correct.
And interestingly, the gap between outer London of what's coming on the market and what's selling is really tight,
Yeah,
because mostly three-bedroom semis. So most three-bedroom semis come on the market and then they sell pretty close. But anything in inner London, the gap is like hundreds of thousands
yeah,
different.
yeah, exactly.
There you go. Right, let's get back to stats, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So we now move on to the Resi sell-through rate. That's the percentage of properties of your sales, Resi sales stock, do you actually achieve a sale on? This is a monthly figure, so this is the April figure. We'll hopefully have the figures in time for the May show next week, all being well. What should do, fingers crossed. We're selling just under 1 in 6 houses of our property on the market. Is that enough?
I'd say probably not. If you're looking at the average fee and how many agents actually monetize the opportunity at time of instruction, which is not enough, I'd say no, it needs to be better than that.
I mean, isn't it interesting? And again, I know we say this most times, but even in 21 and 22, we were only shifting 25 to 30% of the houses we had for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought it was 100%. It wasn't. Let's move on to fall throughs. Again, fall throughs doing quite nicely. This week, the fall through rate was, here we go, 6,618, which is pretty standard for the time of year. Right, sorry, here we go. Where's my graphs gone? I'll have to stop them going again. Hold on. Resi sell-through rate is in the early 20s, and the percentage of the sales pipeline, this is a monthly stat, but this is just more of a longer trend. And you can see here that sales fall-throughs are slightly dropping. This is the percentage of your sales pipeline that's falling through each month. And again, we're running on around 5.5% at the moment, which again, if you some is, and you can say, well, I thought it was around a third. Well, this is on a monthly basis. This is the fall through rate, as I said, is 22.9 for the week. So this is number of gross sales, number of fall throughs, and the fall throughs this week expressed as a percentage against the number of gross sales, 22.93. I think
And
this is
that's actually pretty good because we've mentioned that gross sales are up, but then so is available stock. So don't get too excited. But if gross sales are up and fall throughs aren't increasing at the same rate yet, then there has got to be a bit of a lag time for that. So it is a watch this space, but that's a positive sign.
Yeah, and let's just this is a nice graph. Is that ignore the crystal spikes, which is this one, and this one. We're looking at the trend. This here, ladies and gentlemen, was the quasi quarton budget. Okay, this here was when interest rates started to bite, and fall throughs did go up, and then basically it's just been on a slow drift downwards. And then, sorry about this, as we then go into the spring and summer of 24, it rises naturally because there's more sales coming through. And again, it's just been drifting downwards nicely in the new
Yeah.
year, hovering around that 22% mark on a weekly basis. Um, you asked me about net sales. So net sales is gross sales this week, less fall throughs this week. And this week we had these are the things
Your
that
your Teams is just about to open.
teams.
Maybe it's me. No, apologies. That was me. I don't know how that happened. I didn't even go near my laptop.
Don't worry. Okay, so net sales as we got on the graph here, 22,243, which we'll just come back to the graphs. Where are the graphs? Here we go. Hold on. I'll just have to stop them again and bring them up again. So I must sort myself how to do that. You can look on this graph here. And when you're considering that the number of net sales this week is almost identical to what it was in May 22, so the interest rates haven't kicked in, the quarantine budget hadn't kicked in. That's really, 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 really good. And the only year that's got beating it is the green line, which is 21, which was a crazy year anyway.
Hmm.
Net sales 6% at 403,018, which is 6% higher than 24 and 12% higher than 17, 18, or 19. We've all done those net sales there. Again, it's looking quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's good. That is good.
Right, let's now move on. A couple of extra bonus graphs for you geeks out there. We always put these in. Gross sales as a percentage of listings and price changes as a percentage of listings. Um, again, Iain used to be countrywide. These are big graphs that you guys used to love to bits. Goes, anything you want to say on this one, or is it just
It shows that agents are working their stock, but again, how well are they working it? Which is are they just maximizing, the price reduction to say that they've got a correction in the price, or actually they're doing it properly? So back to my previous point.
okay? Good stuff. Let's move on. Each month we look at the exchanges and withdrawals. The red line is the number of exchanges. The yellow line is the number of withdrawn. And as you would expect, we just go back. That lift there was the March uplift, and then we dropped down to around 65,000 in April. I will be updating that April figure because more exchanges have been coming through. I had a week off last week, so that number's probably going to be higher. It just gives you that relationship between the two. So you can see here, back in 21 and 22, there were a lot more exchanges than withdrawals. And there's still more exchanges than withdrawals, but there's still a lot of withdrawals. Remember, 54% of homes that come on the market end up exchanging and completing. 46 end up withdrawn and sold where you haven't been paid.
Hmm.
Sales sales pipelines, again, we're going a graphic that is now a little bit out of date because it will get updated next week. Number of properties in sales pipeline, 453,000 compared, again, a lot more than 17, 18 and 19. Now, so you're going to say, well, some of this, Chris, is to do with the fact that conveyancing is taking as long. Ladies and gentlemen, you were all complaining about conveyancing pre-COVID. There's just a lot more properties in the pipeline. Interestingly, the length of time it is taking to get a property through a sales to exchange or completion has dropped a couple of days compared to last year. Doesn't feel that way, does it? But it has. And then finally, the pound per square foot figures. Again, this will be updated next week. But the orange line is the pound per square foot on sale agreed. And why is that really important? For those of you who have not watched the show before, that will tell you what the land registry will do almost perfectly within 5 or 6 months. So if you want to know what's happening in the property market and get an unfair advantage, watch the show each week, and watch where that orange line is going. Right. Okay, Ian. Anything on this before we go to Canterbury?
No, I think so. As an overview, there's a good market. It is showing signs that it's just starting to change. So those agents that react and anticipate that change will get ahead of the curve. It's time for good, honest communication with your seller. Grade your sellers, deal with every single inquiry like it's an important one, and make the most of the opportunity.
Absolutely fantastic. Right. Without further ado, let's go to Canterbury. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for the purposes of looking at Canterbury, we're going to be using a piece of software called Insight. Insight is from a platform from the firm called 20EA. They do have a number of different platforms with different names, but we're specifically looking at Insight. Insight is a bit like Rightmove Plus on steroids with lasers and glitter balls, and the stuff it chucks out and the insight it gives you is, in my humble opinion, truly amazing. I must stress to you, I've not been paid in any way, shape, or form by 20EA to show this bit of kit. Although again, I have to declare that they do give me this kit bit of free of charge to enable me to do the show that you've already seen today and the stuff that we're doing today. I believe that there is a freemium version of this for estate agents, whilst the date doesn't go back that far, gives you a flavour of it. And if you cross their palm with silver, there is one based for a town and the surrounding villages, which, in my humble opinion, I'm not going to mention prices, don't mention my name, is very reasonable. Then they do a regional one, and then they do a national one. Okay, and my certain skill set, ladies and gentlemen, and what my daytime job is, not doing the stat show or even interviewing people on my sofa, is that my daytime job, ladies and gentlemen, is helping estate and letting agents attract landlords and vendors to their agency by making them appear to be the most knowledgeable agent in their town by using property data, because everyone's interested in the property market. And let's not forget, the Property Academy said when they interviewed 10,000 homeowners, how did you or why did you choose your particular agent? And 36% of the homeowners said they chose their agent based on that agent's local property market knowledge. So therefore, if you take data that we're potentially using today and other types of data, then you're more likely to be attracted to homeowners to you as an agent. So what I would say is this: if any Canterbury agents watching this and you think, oh yeah, I'd like to talk about producing content about the Canterbury property market, then do give me a shout. But anyway, less of the plug. Let's move on and have a look at the data. So without further ado, let's look. Most of this data is residential sales, and there'll be a little bit of lettings at the end. Ian, as always, could you just, bloody hell, look at that orange line. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. I apologise, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, that shocked me. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at Canterbury, and the postcodes that we're looking at is CT1, 2, 3, and 4, which does include some countryside. We are not including new homes, and we're including all price bands and all property types. Well, Ian, I tell you what, look at Miles and Bar.
Yeah, interesting.
Consistent, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Recently acquired.
Who owns them now?
I think they got bought by
Is it Lomond or LRG?
Lomond, I think. Lomond Group.
Oof, wowee. Okay, let's go and see what Wards are doing then. Well, I'll tell you what, at 7 or 8%, which is their average in the last. So here we
Yeah.
are. We're looking at new instructions here, ladies and gentlemen, and we're looking at the 1st 2020 to May 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got two big agents who are staying in their own lane. Now, HomeWise, I'm not going to show because HomeWise is just one of these agents who recycles their properties and put them on lifetime mortgages. So they're just a recycling of other stock. Let's have a look at this. Godwin Curtis, and okay. There appears to be a very slight growth
Yeah,
in
it does. Yeah, yeah.
in residential sales. in terms of their market share for listings from around that 4% mark to around probably a 6% mark,
Hmm.
which doesn't sound very sexy, ladies and gentlemen, but that's a 50% increase. So well done, Godwin Curtis. Let's go look at Regal. Let's go look at Regal. Regal Estates, nice and steady, around 5-6%. And then just a slight drifting off, but not too much. I'm liking what I'm seeing there. Um, yeah, not bad, not at all. We've got some spikes there, crystal spikes. No, looks like no, there isn't. No, right. Let's go look at Charles Bainbridge. Oh dear, it looks like Charles Bainbridge are slowly slipping away. Probably back in 2020, there would have been a dominant agent around 10%, giving Miles and Bar and Wards a run for their money.
Mm.
And so it looks like there's a drifting off there. Let's go look at Connells. Have we got some crystal spikes in there? Yeah, there they are.
Mm.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we're looking for here is Connell Secrets are very well known for their Boxing Day launches. We've got a Boxing Day launch there. So they did one in 22, they did one in 24. Did they do one? Did do a huge one in December 23. So, nice and steady. Page and Co. Growth like that. Man's Your Move. Sanderson's. Best of Eves. We'll just go look at the top boys and girls here. They're going to get a lot of spike here, ladies and gentlemen. Oh dear, it looks like Kent estate agents. So they had about 5 or 6, and they've been drifting downwards
Mm.
around that 2% mark. So it looks like Kent estate agents could do with a bit of a hand there with the growth of their agency there.
Mm.
Stratton Parkers. Remember the average price changes. We'll have a look at the upper quartile in a second. We'll just look at these here just because some of the agents. Brown seem to be falling. Fine and Country. Lane Bennett, Winkworths, Sally Hatcher, Oatley, Yopers. Tell you what, I've just been looking at the Yopa figures nationally, and mate, they really have pulled their socks up.
Have they?
Quite impressive nationally. I know it goes against the grain. You think, well, why are you saying that? Yeah, really good. Right, let's just have a quick look.
The nice thing about data, Chris, is it doesn't care about your feelings.
No, it doesn't, does it?
No. So data is data, isn't it? So that's why you use it.
Okay, so it looks like in the £1 million mark, the two big agents, Stratton Parker, seem to be the big daddies. This is the 1
Yeah.
million mark. And Fine and Country looks like they're giving you a good run for your money.
Yeah.
Fine and Country, that's part of your stable, isn't it?
It is indeed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's just see if we just knock off the million, whether that makes any difference. So again, it looks like Struts are the big daddies.
Yeah.
In the 2 million mark. Okay. So, that's just good to see. Let's just have a quick look and just have a look and see if there's any new agents that are coming up that are, like an EXPs of this world. Let's have a look. And again, nothing I can't see.
No. All very similar, aren't they?
They are. EXP looks like you could do a little bit of guidance support on that. Okay, right. We've done the most recent last year. We've done the upper quartile. Let's go look at stock levels. Okay, and you can look at that to your heart's content. But this is the magic thing. Is this? Here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, in CT 1, 2, 3, and 4, in 2020 there was 938 properties. Today there's 1,412.
Wow.
So therefore, there's a big number there, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of, if someone's saying, well, I want to track chance my arm. Well, there's double the amount of stock, ladies and gentlemen. And again, it's a stat I roll out most weeks. If a property takes less than 25 days to achieve a sale, the chances of that sale subsequently going through to exchange and completion are 94%. If a property takes more than 100 days to sell, its chance of that sale then subsequently getting through to exchange and completion comes crashing down to 56%. So it goes from 94 to 56. So anyone that comes on the market saying, well, we'll just try it for a slightly higher figure. Yeah, But if you're going to keep it on for 100 days, even if you do sell it, which you're less likely to, the chance of you still being paid on it. I mean, here's something controversial. I genuinely believe a lot of employed valuers don't really care whether the house sells or not. As long as they get it on the market, the other competitor don't get it. Am I being a bit naughty there?
Well, I think the business owners and the corporate should link paycheck to purpose. And the purpose has got to be that the homeowner moves, not that they put the house on the market.
You're so right. If I was president of a state agency, first thing I would do is you would get rid of bonuses for listings.
Yeah.
Not helping. I'll tell you what I'd also get rid of, which again is not going to be very popular, is I'd get rid of referral fees or cap them for a couple hundred quid. So
Yeah.
you've got to go out there and earn your money. I am hearing that there are solicitors in the southeast that are basically adding £600, £700 to a conveyancer's bill as a add-on.
Wow.
I even heard one that was knocking on the door of 850, but that's another story for another day. Right. Okay, let's move on. And there's a lot of data here. But I tell you what, mate, there's some absolute gold. Right, let's have a look. It's a lot, ladies and gentlemen. What is this telling us? Most estate agents will look at the new instructions,
Hmm.
percentage of new instructions in since, and we'll just sort that data out. There we go. Hold on. There we go. Since the 14th of April 2023. I'm just going to move that, Ian, actually, to the last year. I think I'll just feel a bit more comfortable
Hmm.
on that one. So I'll just do that. There we go. I mean, that should change the numbers in a second. Right, here we go. Right. I want you to ignore new instructions, new instruction market share. You've already seen that, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, you can have a bit of fun with your sole subject to contracts, but this is where the true magic is, ladies and gentlemen. Exchanged and withdrawn. Because the only reason a property leaves an estate agent's book is whether she exchanges or whether she withdraws. And if you add up your exchange figure to your withdrawn figure on each line, they all add up to 100%. Because this four columns here is where the true gold is. Okay. You see, in the last year, okay, in the last year, and we'll get our calculators out on this one because like when I'm being filmed, my brain just turns to mush. In the last year, in those postcodes, Miles and Bar have had 515 properties leave their books, 270 plus 245, of which 52.43 or 270 of the 515 exchange contracts. We've got Wards at 49. I've taken Homewise out because it's just muddying the waters. And then you've got Godwin Curtis at 67 and Page & Co at 67 and Connell's at 29. Regal's at 49. Sanderson's 68. I'll just get rid of David Wilson's. There we go, a second. Charles Bainbridge at 55. Mann at 41. We'll just have a quick look down. Now, if you don't mind me saying, Ian, I've never seen a gap so big between, and let's not, we've said the numbers, so let's not mention firms again.
Yeah.
In this top 10 or 15 or so,
Yeah.
there is one agent in there that has a less than 1 in 3 chance of getting the house sold, i.e.,
Yeah.
and the agent getting paid. And there's an agent in there that has a 2 in 3 chance of getting the property sold.
Yeah. It's incredible, actually, isn't it? And you look at the stats that follow that line of the one that's got a 1 in 3. They got a very high withdrawn rate and a very high fall through rate and a very high price reduction rate. So it's sort of all drains lead to the sea on this one, and it is you're overvaluing at time of instruction.
Well, we actually do have the overvaluing stats in a second. And again, you can overvalue and still get the house sold if you
Yeah.
get the price down quickly.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
so
work it.
we'll be having a look at that and seeing because there isn't always high overvaluing often has high price reductions.
Hmm.
It's when you do the reduction that's the important bit. Okay, so let's have a look. So let's look at the withdrawal rates. So the average exchange rate in the last year in Canterbury is 46.5%, and these are the averages down there. The withdrawal rate 53%. So let's have a look. Fall through rate. The average is 25.9. Is there anyone that's screaming? It looks like Page and Co.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. That's good. So therefore, their fall through rate. So I wonder if, and also you've got Stratton Parker at 16, and you've got Sanderson's at 20. There's some really low fall through rates. I'm wondering if they're using reservation agreements. Not too sure. Charles Bainbridge at 40%. That's quite high. But again, not end of the world. You have to look at it in context with everything else. Let's have a look at price reductions. 54.36% of houses are being price reduced. But Mars and Bar at 71.65. Wow.
Yeah, it's high, isn't it?
And he's high. Let's have a look at Ward's 66. So what this is saying is that we'll look at the prices, we'll look at the overvalued figures in a second. It appears that the top two agents are working their stock. Are they actually getting them through? No, nowhere. You got around 50 versus late 60s.
Mm.
That is almost a 40% differential. Those two agents, Godwin Curtis and Page and Co, have a nearly 40% greater chance of getting the property away compared to those two other agents.
Mm.
And if you compared it with another corporate estate agent on that list, well, the figures speak for themselves.
They do.
Let's have a look and see which agent. We'll just have a quick look at that, just in case anyone wants to look at the stats. There we go. Right, let's go and look at the bloody hell, mate. Well, we did say that. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm swearing. I do apologise. Look,
Mm.
price changes 71 and 66. Who's
Mhm.
overvaluing? This one here is the overvaluing
Wow.
pile. Okay. Miles and Bar and Wards have market share, but have a much lower exchange ratio.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen, again, some of the big agents who are watching this on the screen, your head office will have will have insights. So have a word with your area manager and say, can I have access to my insight report? So what are we actually looking at here, ladies and gentlemen? We need to totally ignore the new instruction column. That's just put there so the bigger agents are at the top. We're looking at the last 2 years of your exchanges, and we're looking at the price that the property came onto the market when it went for sale. Okay, so therefore, what do we mean by that? Is that Mars and Bar, of all the exchanges that took place in the last 2 years, they overvalued when it came on the market at the time of it coming on the market by an average of 3.88%. The average in Canterbury is 2.41%. Wards have overvalued by 6.53. Mate, I've never seen a gap.
That's pretty massive, isn't it?
Look, if there is something here which proves that overvaluing doesn't work,
Yeah.
Godwin and Curtis and Page and Co. exchange contracts on 2 out of 3 houses.
Yeah.
They don't overvalue.
Yeah.
So there you go. Look, and then you've got the ones that overvalue are the ones with lower exchange rates.
Mm.
So this just goes to prove, do you put the house on the market to list it, or do you put the house on the market to get them moved and paid?
I wonder whether their stock is do they win new to the market stock or recycled stock? That'd be an interesting question to ask them.
I've got the national figures of only I think it's 5.9% of house sales
Yeah.
are with the second agent.
Yeah, I've heard you say that stat before, and I would like to see the data to back that up.
Okay. That's
But
not listings, that's sales.
yeah, no, I get that. I understand that. But there will be regional nuances, and so this might be different in this location. I
Of
still,
course, of course there'll be huge regional influence differences
yeah,
on that.
yeah, yeah.
What you tend to find, because I haven't got the regional figures, but I do talk to a lot of agents, and that the further north you go, the higher that number is.
Okay, it's interesting.
Okay. Okay, so that's the overvaluing, and I can just see the top two agents there really are overvaluing there. Right, what's the next one? The red by bar chart, price achieved. Okay, so what are we looking at there is What percentage from the original asking price did you achieve for that property? So
Mm.
therefore, Miles and Bar overvalued by 3.88%, according to the personal opinion of 20EA's Insights computer program. And then from what was actually achieved at the land registry, how much did you get? Did you knock off the original, not the price reduced price, 6.95%. So if you want to know, you take 3.88 and you minus, take away the 6.95, and that's what each agent will get. A lot of people don't like percentages, so we'll bring in the pound notes. And you can see here, for everyone that, if everyone put on a £450,000 house, what would each achieve? And you can see here that there are some absolute belters of numbers, both good and bad. And we'll just let the numbers speak for themselves, ladies and gentlemen. But if you were an agent who is looking to prove that you can get more for your money, then graphs like this, charts like this can help. Anything
Mm.
on that before we carry on?
No, I think, like you say, the numbers speak for themselves.
Next, let's have a look at which agents are selling their houses quickest. And in the top 10, the agents that seem to be selling their house quickest are Sanderson's at 70 days. You can see there, no instruction to still submit the contract. And they're only taking 182 days from new instruction to completion. Let's just look at the stats. 112, which is better than the average in Canterbury at 129. We'll just have a quick look just down the list here. And you're looking at the second one down, new instruction to sell agreed. And this is in days.
Mm.
Okay. Right. So again, let's just remind ourselves, wards and miles and bar. So look, wards are taking 90 days to achieve a sale, whilst
Yeah.
whilst Goodwin and Curtis, who seem to be the agent of, are on 69,
Yeah.
69 days
Yeah.
versus 90 days. Okay, it's
Still
interesting.
longer than people anticipate, isn't it?
Always.
Still longer. And again, if you're saying to the seller in the living room at time of assessment or valuation, "Oh, I sell your house really quickly for you," you just got to be honest. Talk about data, talk about fact, talk about exactly what their experience is going to be.
You're so right. You're so right. Right, let's move on to the final bit, which is lettings. The average rent in the last 5 years, 1,197. Let's have a look at see what it was in 2020. The average price was at 1,089. What is it now? I'll do the last 6 months or so. 1,252. Actually, not a huge growth compared to the rest of the country. That's interesting. Okay, let's have a look. Open rent. I mean, in 2020 nationally, it was around 5-6%. It looked higher in Canterbury. But at the moment, around 15 or 16% of properties in Canterbury are going to open rent. Again, a stat I mentioned a number of times, ladies and gentlemen. Half the properties that open rent have put on the market in the last 2 years were previously on the market with a high street letting agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big student town, obviously. So let's look at student tenant Regal Estates. Yeah, that's nice and decent.
Yeah.
Again, good letting agent there. Nicholas Humphreys, I know they're a student provider. Caxton's, Martin and Co. Let's have a quick look down this. As you can see, a lot of them are drifting off, aren't
Mm. Yeah, they are.
they? Isn't it? Looks like Godwin Curtis could do with a hand with their let it bit growth there. Okay, that's okay. Right, let us. What's your final thoughts on what we've said then? Anything to do with what today?
Um, my final thoughts, and I might be, the market's okay. The market is okay. It's transacting well, with clearly agents are having to work harder for their money because there's more stock, there's more volume, all of those sorts of things. The thought that is springing to mind for me, Chris, is true vision is not knowing when to get onto the arc. It's when to start building an arc. And if I were running a big business with lots of offices at the moment, I would be suitably paranoid that we might just start to see for the remainder of this year a little bit of a change of performance. We've had a stimulus in the first quarter. I think that is waning somewhat in the upper quartile, definitely. And I would start to work my stock more appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times I've gone on a rant, you know, uh, I personally believe the valuers should manage their own stock and make the difficult
Completely agree.
question.
Go back after 4 weeks and hold their feet to the flame and go and sit in the living room with Mr. and Mrs. Watkins, senior management, and tell them about all of the promises that they made, 4 weeks ago of how it would go and see if the team have delivered and the results have delivered. Absolutely.
Definitely. I'm hearing some absolute shocking stories of people. I had a phone call from someone who said they put their house on the market for 5 months. The agent said, "Oh, just slice it off." I said, "Mrs., your house is 50 grand overpriced." And she said, always thought it was, but I thought the agents knew best. Sometimes agents don't know best." Ian, thank you for your insight today. If you're an estate agent and you want to use some of these graphs in your own personal presentation, I've got absolutely no issue with you downloading them. If you go to YouTube, scroll down to the bottom, there's a little link there where you can download them. I absolutely don't use them on social media because I reserve the right for my own clients, my ghostwriting clients, where I write property market updates, local ones, to use that information. But you can use them on your own, Val's got no problem with that. Ian, thank you for your time today, and thank you for watching the show. We'll see you next week for week 21 of the UK Property Market Stat Show.
Thanks, Chris.